Okay, so we're in 13.1. This is 13.1, which is all about the parabola and the circle. It's our last section. Okay, first question is they're saying, hey, this parabola equation, does it go like up or down, right? Up or down or right or left? Which way do the arrows go on this parabola? Well, the deal is this. When you have y alone, so these y alone, well, let me say it this way. Up and down are when you have y equals positive, right? Because that's up. If you have y equals negative, that's down. Right is if you have x is positive, because that's the positive x direction, huh? And left is if you have x equals negative, because this is the negative x direction, this is the positive y, this is the negative y. So what do we have? We have y, and I'm talking about the first power letter. First power letter in the front. So see how I'm not looking at that x squared. I don't care. I just want to know y equals negative. Y equals negative, down, downward. Let's try the next one. Y equals, what's that? Positive x squared, right? There's no sign there. It's positive. Positive, up, upward. That's all they want on those two. Okay, so here on number 3, now notice what we're doing. We have x is minus 6y squared. So whenever you have x equals negative, that's left. Negative x is left. So we know this parabola is going to open to the left like that. So now the most important part of finding a parabola is finding its center. They're called the vertex, the center of the parabola. How do we find its center? Well, remember, we had 2 ways of finding the center. If you, when you have no parentheses squared, you have to, normally, earlier, we would say you take x equals negative b over 2a. Remember that? Well, now it's going to switch, and it's going to become y equals negative b over 2a. That's, you see the difference? Because normally, look back at number 2 and 1. See, they have y on the left side, so these are the ones that go up and down. They have y. But now we have x on the left side, so these go right and left, so that switches the formula, which is normally, like I said, it's normally x equals negative b over 2a. Now it's y. You always start with the, I could write right here, opposite letter, huh? So if there's x in the front, you start with y. If there's y in the front, you start with x. Okay, so negative b over 2a. Now what's a and b and c? Well, this is a right here. B must be 0 because there's nothing else here. So it's going to be negative 0 over 2 times a, 2 times negative 6. That's 0 over 12. That's just 0. So y is just 0. So we have y is 0. Now how do we find x? We plug it in. We bring, and now plug in y equals 0. Bring this equation, our original equation, down to here. X is minus 6y squared, but put in the y slot the 0, so x is also 0. So our vertex, our center is 0, 0, right here at the origin. Now, we've got the center, the xy, y was 0, x was 0, 0, 0. Got that by y is negative b over 2a, so that's the center. Now, is this one going to go up, down, right, or left? Well, we've already decided it's going left because it's x equals negative. X equals negative means left. Well, okay, so how do we find exactly how far left? Well, remember the number in the front is a slope, isn't it? X equals minus 6y squared. Remember, you put that over 1, and it's a slope. But here's the trick. it's a backward slope. Instead of rise over run, remember, everything is reversed when you have x in the front instead of y. That's weird. We're used to having y in the front. So this is run over rise. It's backwards. It's run over rise. Basically, whatever's in the front, that's what goes up top. If x is in the front, x is run, x-axis. So let me run back, so we go back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, go up 1. So there's where we make our parabola. It goes like that. So you want to put that dot back 6, this is back 6, up 1, and then the center is 0, 0, and the parabola, the U shape, I made it almost like a V. It's not a very good graph, but you get the idea. It's a U shape going left. There we go. Okay, let's try number 4. Same thing. Now, when they have parentheses squared, okay, so parentheses squared is a little different. See how this one has parentheses squared and the next one doesn't? And the last one did not have parentheses squared. So what do you do when you have parentheses squared? How is that different? Well, it's actually easier. All you got to do is you take the opposite of the number in the parenthesis and the same as the number outside of the parenthesis. Opposite, same. You don't have to mess around with negative b. You know, you don't have to do the, see what we had to do here, the negative b over 2a formula. You don't have to mess around with that. Just do opposite, same. These are easier. So I come up here and I go, okay, opposite of that negative 2, same as that negative 3. So that's how I do parenthesis one. So opposite, same, it's quicker, easier. Okay, but the opposite of the negative 2 is positive 2, right? And the same as of negative 3 is just negative 3. But careful now, which one's which? That's going with y, isn't it? So that's the y value, and this one's the x. Do you see what I mean? This negative 2 is next to y. So it's got to go there. When I do opposite and get positive 2, it goes in the y slot, and the x is negative 3. That's my center. That's my vertex. That quick, I have the vertex. So back 3, 1, 2, 3, up 1, 2. So right there, there's the vertex that quick. Now, let me get rid of all that scribbling. So we just did opposite, same, like that. Okay, now, which way does this one go? That's x equals positive. Whoops. There's nothing in front of those parentheses, so that means positive. So when you have x equals positive, that's to the right. The positive, this is the x-axis, right? The positive x-axis is to the right. So that means this parabola is going to the right in the positive x direction. So now how do we find out? We got the center right here, which is, back 3, up 2. There's the center. So how do we find one other dot? What do you always do? Other dot, you use the slope. The slope is whatever's in front here. This is 1 over 1. But remember, it's upside down. It's upside down. When you have x in the front, it's going sideways. So it's run over rise. So you go right 1, up 1. I guess it doesn't matter since it's just 1 in both directions. Start right here. Go right 1, up 1. So the second dot's right there. See what I did? I went right 1, up 1. And so there's the second dot. Connect the dots. And there we go. There's the parabola. This other point, you had to go right 1, up 1 to get the second point. There's the parabola. Okay, so and now this next one. Now here there's no parentheses squared, so it's going to be a harder one. I've got to find the vertex the harder way. X equals negative b over 2a. Actually, it's the other way around. It's y, isn't it? It's y equals. So remember, it's always the opposite of the letter in the front. If there's x in the front, then you got to start with y equals negative b over 2a. So what's that going to be? This is a is 1, b is 6. So negative b over 2 times 1. Do you see that right there? So that's going to be what? Negative 3? So I've got y equals negative 3. Now plug in to find x. Plug into the beginning formula. Let me get rid of all this scribbles. The beginning formula, bring it down. X is y squared plus 6y plus 2. Plug in, boom. Plug in, boom. So what do we got? Minus 3 squared plus 6 times minus 3 plus 2. What's that? 9 minus 18 plus 2. What's that? Minus 7. So we've got the center, the vertex, the center of the parabola is minus 7 for x. And what was y? Negative 3 for y. So back 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, down 1, 2, 3, right there. Back 7, down 3. There is, let me write that a little bit better. There's the center of the vertex, back 7, down 3. Now, how do we find our second dot? What do? It's the slope, right? So is the slope. What's the slope? Right in the front. It's the front slope that's in the front. What's in the front? 1 over nothing, so 1 over 1. Remember, it's upside down. When it's going sideways, it's upside down. It's run over rise, but I guess it doesn't matter. They're both just 1. So, again, it's right 1, up 1. There we go. There's our second dot. Connect the dots. That one's going to the right. Whoops. Let me try that again. It's going to the right. There we go, like we knew, because it's x. Yeah, from the beginning we could have known it was going to the right because it was x equals positive, which is, this is the positive x direction to the right. There it is. Okay, so x equals negative 2y squared. So this one is x equals negative 2 whatever, blah, blah, blah. So that's left, huh? Because the negative x direction is left, isn't it? This is the negative x-axis. This is the positive x-axis over here. So we're going to the left. This is a parabola, x equals negative 2. It's going left. Now, there's no parentheses squared, so to find the vertex, what do? Take whatever they put in the front here and do the opposite. So y is negative b over 2a. Okay, here's a and b. So negative b over 2 times negative a. That's positive 1 if you divide that. That's negative 4 over negative 4, positive 1. So y equals positive 1. Plug in to find x. So I grab the equation from the beginning, right up here, bring it down. X equals minus 2y squared plus 4y plus 7. Plug in the y value. What's y? 1. And if you work that out, what's that? Minus 2 plus 4, 2. Is it 9? Minus 2 plus 4 is 2. Yeah, 9. Okay, so the center then, the vertex is 9, 1, x, y. X is 9, y is 1. So that's the center. So over 9, up 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, up 1. So right there, 9, 1. There's the center of the vertex. We know we're going to the left. Going to the left. We've already, because it's x equals negative 2. So to find the second dot, come up here. Second dot, use the slope in the front. What's slope in the front? Negative 2 over 1 right here in the front. And remember, it's upside down. When they're going sideways, it's upside down, so it's run over rise. So that means it goes back to 1, 2, it's so small, up 1. Wait, let me try that again. Back 2, up 1, right there. See how that's back 2, up 1, so tiny. Surgery here. Okay, let's draw it. Boom. Boom. There's the parabola. It's going left. Back 2, up 1 on the dot. There we go. Okay, so now we're changing gears. This is a circle. So no more parabolas. Well, maybe we'll have one more in a little bit. No more U-shapes. Instead, we're graphing a circle. Now, how do you know this is a circle? Well, it says circle, but it's because both x and y are squared. Both letters are squared. Let's look back for a minute. If I can erase all the mess here. See how on this last one, x is not squared, but y is. We only have one letter squared, not x, not the other letter. Same thing here, one letter squared, the other is not. Same thing here, one letter squared, the other is not. That's a parabola. One letter is squared, the other is not. But for a circle, both letters are squared in the equation. Okay, so this is a circle. How do you do it? Well, basically, it's pretty easy. You take opposite of whatever's next to x and next to y, that's the center. So what's the center? What's next to x? Nothing, 0. What's next to y? -3. The opposite of that is +3. See what I did there? I took the opposite of what was next to x. There was nothing next to x, that's 0. And I took the opposite of what was next to y. -3 was next to y, so the opposite of that is +3. So that's the center. Let's find that. Over 0, up 3, right there. There's the center of our circle. Over 0, up 3. And now, the right side, well, the next thing we need to know is what's the radius of our circle. The radius of our circle is the square root of the right side. So what's the square root? So the radius, square of the right side is 25. Square root of 25, so the radius is 5. Now what does that mean, radius? What is the radius? So the radius of this circle, it's the square root of the number on the right, square root of 25, it's 5. What is the radius? That's how far, the radius of a circle, is how far from the center to the edge, anywhere. So from the center I go, the radius is 5, so I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's the edge, and go right and go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's the edge. And go right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's the edge. Go left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You go 5 in any direction. There is the circle. We just graphed the circle on that. Okay, now number 8 is going to be a little harder. So when they have x squared and regular x, or y squared and regular y, you must take number next to y to the first or x to the first over 2 squared, add to both sides. Remember that whole thing, that completing the square thing? Well, you have to do it here. Whenever they have x squared and regular x, or y squared and regular y. See how they have y squared and regular y? They didn't have that in the last one. Look back. Look back at the last one. See, the only y was being squared. He was under a square. And the only x was being squared. I never had a regular y that wasn't being squared, or a regular x that wasn't being squared, which is good. That made it easier. This one's harder because of that regular y right there that's not being squared. So I got to do the magic number routine, or I mean it's called the completing the square. So you got to take, what do? You take the number next to y over 2 squared. So take that number next to y, put it over 2 squared. What is that? -1 squared, +1. So that means you take the equation. Let me bring down the equation here. X squared plus y squared minus 2y equals 0. And then you got to add that 1. Right? Add to both sides. I have to add the 1 to both sides. Okay. Then, so what? What does that do? Well, then the y stuff here, this is guaranteed to factor. How does that factor? The other side's just 1, right? 0 plus 1 is just 1. How does that factor? Doesn't it factor y's in the front? What are two numbers that multiply to be 1 and add to be minus 2? 1 times 1 multiplies to be 1, and if both of them are negative, they'll add to be negative 2, won't they? So that's y minus 1, which means it's y minus 1 squared. See how it made it a square? It completed the square when you add the number next to y over 2 squared, and you add it to both sides. Okay, now we can graph the thing. Now that why do we do all that? Because now it's easy to graph. How do we find the center? Opposite, opposite. So what's next to x? Nothing, so that's 0. What's next to y? Negative 1, the opposite is positive 1. That's the center. So over 0 up 1 right here is the center. And the radius is the square root of the number on the right. Square root of 1 is 1. So it means you go up 1, down 1, right 1, and left 1. It's just a tiny little circle right there. To see what we did? So this is a weird one, huh? The center right there was over 0 up 1. And then the radius was only 1, so I went up 1, down 1, right 1, left 1. There's the circle. Okay, and number 9, it's another circle, opposite, opposite. So they're asking me for the center right here. That'll be negative 1, positive 4. Negative 1, positive 4. Okay, what's the radius? It's the square root of the number on the right side, square root of 13. Okay, good. Now, which of these circles has a center? The center is supposed to be back 1, up 4. Whoops, like upper left, and then, like that, upper left. Which one of those circles seems like it's centered in the upper left? It's certainly A, huh? There it is. Good enough. We got it. Okay, so now on number 10, another circle. Now, we have to see how there's a number in front of x squared and a number in front of y squared. We must divide by that 5 all the way through. Divide by 5, divide by 5, divide by 5. Just to get x squared alone and y, let's say to get x squared, y squared alone. We don't want any number in front of them. The other side, 125 divided by 5 is actually 25. So now we can find the center. What's the center of the circle? Opposite of what's next to x. What's next to x? Nothing. Opposite of what's next to y. What's next to y? Nothing. What's the radius? Square root of the number on the right side is 5. So the center of this circle is 0, 0, right here at the origin. And the radius is 5. That means it's 5 in any direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, left 5. So we make a circle, centered at 0, 0, radius 5 on that. Okay, so on this one, same kind of thing. We have to divide through by the 2 because we don't want a number in front of x squared or y squared. Cancels, cancels. And we get x plus 5 squared plus y minus 1 squared is 7. Okay, so then what's the center? Opposite, opposite. Notice for circle equations, we always take the opposite of both, don't we? For the parabola, back when we were doing the U-shapes, we take the opposite of the one in the parenthesis, but the same as the number outside the parenthesis. So basically, in all these graphs, anything in a parenthesis, we always take the opposite of. That's what we always do. Any number in a parenthesis squared, we always take the opposite of. So the center is going to be what? Negative 5, comma, positive 1. Okay, now what's the radius? How do we do that? The radius is the square root of the number on the right side, square root of 7. And now, okay, now which one of these is the right picture? Well, the center is back 5, up 1. Which of those looks like, oh, that one's a little more tricky, isn't it? Here, let me go to a fresh screen. So again, the center is back 5, up 1. The radius is square root of 7. On your calculator, square root of 7 is 2 point, what is it? Let me do it on my calculator right here. So, second square root of 7, I'm getting 2.6. Now, they only want the root 7 answer here, but I'm doing 2.6 for my own self. Let me graph here. Center is back 5, up 1. So there's the center. And so that's the center, back 5, up 1. So then how far do we go? What's the radius? It's about 2.6. I'm just going to eyeball it the best I can. 2.6. So that would be like 1, 2.5. About like that. 1, 2.5, you know. 1, 2, and a little more than a half. 1, 2, a little more than a half. So it's going to look, you know, something like that. Say, which of those looks sort of like that? Well, it's not D. That's in the wrong place completely. It's not A. See how he's below the axis? So it's either B or C. Hard for me to tell. I'm going to need to hone in a little bit better on them. They look very similar to me. Okay, so to find out whether it's B or C, I'm going to have to blow them up on the next screen and look really close at the center, back 5, up 1. Here we go. So there's the center, back 5, up 1. And here's the center of this one, back 5, up 1. Okay, so from that center, what's the radius? What's the radius supposed to be? About 2.6, not quite 3, huh? So see how this one goes up 1, 2, 3, all the way up 3. It's too far. This one goes 1, 2, and a little bit more. B is the right answer. It's clear close though. C, the radius just went a little too far. Okay, number 12. Write an equation center of a circle with center 0, 0, radius root 13. Remember what you do. It's going to be x. Well, to have center 0, 0, it's going to be x squared plus y squared is root 13 squared. In other words, x squared plus y squared is, well, I just should have said 13. Huh? That was kind of dumb. Let me put it back here. So there it is. There's the equation. How do we know that's right? Well, remember how you find the center? It's opposite of what's next to x, opposite of what's next to y. That'd be 0, 0. There's nothing next to x or y. 0, 0, which is right. It's supposed to be center 0, 0. And the radius is the square root of the number on the right side, which is right. So there's the equation. Okay, so here we are on number 13. These are kind of good questions. These next few questions are good ones. Let me show you. They give me an equation, and they say, hey, is that thing, is it a parabola or is it a circle? Same thing on the next one. How do we know what it is? Well, this one is a parabola, huh? How do we know it's not a circle? Well, it's only got x is not x squared, right? So when you have one letter squared but the other is not, it's a parabola. Down here, this one will be a circle because both x squared and y squared, if you can read my scribbles down there, both x is squared and y is squared. So it's a circle when both are squared. It's a parabola when only one letter squared, right? Okay, so this is going to be parabola. Now, they're saying, where's the vertex? Well, that's a little tricky. Remember how we find the vertex of a parabola? You've got to do you take the opposite of the letter in the front, so that'd be y, is negative b over 2a. So what's a and b and all that stuff? A is 1, b is 0. You might think, no, b is that -1. No, nope. It's y squared. There's no y, and the -1 is c. So a is 1, b is 0, c is -1. You see that -1 is the number at the back. Let me write that a little better. There's an invisible 0y for b. A is 1. A is what's in front of y squared there. A is 1. And b is 0. C is the -1 at the back. That's c. We're not going to actually use c, but I just want you to know that that -1 is c. So anyway, minus b minus 0 over 2 times a, 2 times 1. 0 over anything is 0. So y equals 0. Now plug in to find x. So I'm going to plug in y equals 0 to find x. Go back to the original equation. X equals y squared minus 1. Plug in y is 0. X equals 0 squared minus 1. X equals -1. So we got it. The parabola, it's a parabola. The vertex is -1 for x, 0 for y. And then it wants me to graph it. So to graph it, we go back 1 up 0 right there. Here's the center. Back 1 up 0. There's the center. Okay. Now we have to find a second dot, as you know. How do we find the second dot always? The slope in the front. And what's the slope in the front? What's in the front of this equation? 1 over 1. Right there in the front. Remember, it's run over rise when it's going sideways. Which way is this one going to go, by the way? This is x equals y squared. What's in the front? X equals positive. So x equals positive x-axis. There's the positive x is going to go to the right. Remember, you look right in the front here. X equals positive. X equals positive. Positive x direction is to the right. So the slope is 1 over 1. So go over 1, up 1. Right there is your second dot. Connect your dots. There it goes. There goes the parabola to the right. I think that's our last parabola. Okay, so number 14 here. We've got, they want me to say, is that equation a circle or a parabola? It's a circle because both x is squared and y is squared, so it's a circle. What's the, they want to know the radius. The radius is the square root of the number on the right side, which is 6. The radius is 6. The center, what's the center? 0, 0, because it's always opposite of what's next to x. Nothing's next to x. And opposite of what's next to y. Nothing's next to y. So 0, 0 is the center. Radius is 6. That means up 6. And down 6. And right 6. And left 6. Connect all those dots. Which I kind of missed there, There's the circle. Okay, so this one, is it a, what is it? It's a circle because both x is squared and y is squared, so it's a circle. Radius is the square root of number on the right. Radius is 5. What's the center? Opposite, so positive 2, positive 2, So right 2 up 2, right there is the center, 2, 2. And then from that center, the radius is 5, so we go up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right there. Down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And right 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And left 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we connect all those dots. There we go. Okay, skip to number 16. That one will be easy for you. I'm going to do number 17. We got to, first off, this one's going to be a circle because we have both x squared and y squared. So it's going to be a circle. Now, before we go any further, we've got to get rid of these fractions. So multiply by 6, multiply by 6, multiply by 6, cancel, cancel. And so when we do that, we get x squared plus y squared is 36, right? 6 times 6. These other 6's canceled, but the ones on the right multiply because there's no denominator to cancel them out. So there's our equation. What's the radius? It's the square root of the number on the right side. It's 6. And the center, opposite, opposite. So that's going to be 0, 0. So that one's easy to graph. I'll move on. Okay, so number 18 is a big pain. First off, it's going to be a circle because x squared and y is squared, right? So certainly it's a circle. It's not a parabola. Parabola only has one letter squared instead of both. Now we got to reorganize it. X squared minus 6x. Y squared plus 4y. And I'm going to take that minus 12 and jump it to the other side, and it'll be plus 12. So you see what I did right there. I need to do some work on the equation because the equation's all kind of messed up. So right now I've got the x stuff together, the y stuff together, and I put the number on the other side. So what I'm going to basically have to do is complete the square. Remember we had one of these earlier? So when you have x squared and x to the first, you put the number next to x over 2 squared, add to both sides. Remember that? So I got to take that negative 6, the number next to x, put it over 2, square it. That's going to be what? Minus 3 squared plus 9. Got to add 9 right there and then add 9 to the other side. And then you got to do the same thing for y also. See the y here? I've got to take the number next to y, put it over 2, square it. That's 2 squared. That's positive 4, isn't it? So positive 4. Add to this side, but you got to add it to the other side as well. See how I added the 9 to both sides and the 4 to both sides? Because you got to keep the balance whenever you have an equation. Okay, let me take this to a fresh screen now. So these three, x squared minus 6x plus 9. What number is this? Number 18. X squared minus 6x plus 9. And then these three, y squared plus 4y plus 4. Equals, on the other side, 12, 9, and 4. Okay, now, these three are guaranteed to factor. That's why we do this. X is in the front. What two numbers multiply to be 9? Add to, what times what is 9? 3 and 3. How do they make negative 6? Both negative. Make them add to be negative 6. Two negatives multiply to be positive. Now, how about the two y values? It's going to do the same thing. Y is in the front. What two numbers multiply to be 4 and also add to be 4? It's going to be 2 and 2, both positive, right? They multiply to be 4 and add to be 4. Other side, what is this, 21, 25? So then factor, this is x minus 3 squared. This is y plus 2 squared, and that's 25. There we go. Now we know it's a circle. The radius is over here. It's the square root of 25. A little scribbly there. So the radius is 5. Okay, and then the center, remember, is opposite, opposite, plus 3 minus 2. So there we go, and I know you can graph it from there. So that was completing the square for both x and for y. Okay, so here's number 19. And so it gives me this equation. I'm going to take that to a fresh screen. So number 19, what is it? X squared minus 8. Well, I got to organize. I got to put these y's together first, huh? So it's x squared plus y squared minus 8y. Plus 1 equals 0, yeah. So I just put the two y's together in the right order, you know, y squared before y. And then I'm just going to jump this number here to the other side, get it out of the way. And so we have x squared plus y squared minus 8y, 1. Okay, now notice, x squared, he's done. What, y? There's no x to the first power term. Right, remember what I said back here? I said when there's x squared and x to the first, you got to do this special thing, number next to x over 2. That's only when there's x squared and x to the first power. So we have only x squared. We don't have x to the first. So that one's done. But we do have to do the y, right? Because there is a y squared and a y to the first power. So it's when you have both y squared and y, or x squared and x. Take that number that's next to the y or next to the x over 2 squared. So it's minus 4 squared. It's plus 16. Add it to both sides. All right, let's bring this down. So this x squared comes down. These three are guaranteed to factor. Other side is just 17. Huh? How do these factor? Y, what multiplies to be 16? Adds to be minus 8. 4 times 4, both negative, adds to be negative 8, and two negatives multiply to be positive 16. So that is then x squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 17. So I know you can graph it from there. So we had to complete the square on the y part only, because there was y squared and regular y, whereas x squared just stayed as it was. Okay, number 20, last problem. Basically, we have to divide through by 3, huh? X squared plus y squared, what's that? 36, yeah, 36. And so that's a circle. The center is 0, 0, isn't it? Because of opposite. There's nothing next to x or y, 0, 0. The radius, square root of the number on the right side, 6. And so put the center at 0, 0, go up to 6, back to 6, over to 6, down to 6, and make a circle. Centered at 0, 0, radius 6. There we go.